All right, welcome back to Fading Glory. So great things sometimes are born, in fact, often are born out of necessity. As I started getting into denim, then I started being exposed to a lot of these different terms that, I had to learn, right? There's a lot, even in just a casual conversation about raw denim or selvage denim. Both of those are terms we're going to cover today. I realized that it's a lot to take in just to make sure that you're familiar with sort of like the lexicon or the glossary of denim. So let's just go ahead and get started. So first of all, denim. Oh, very important. We are joined today by three great pair of jeans. These are all my jeans, bought and paid for by me. So let's go ahead and just go from my left to my right, my left to your right, my left to my right. First of all, we have a pair of Gustin. These are Gustin number 7s, I believe. These are Selvedge denim jeans, and they're this represents our like traditional jean. In fact, as we get into this a little bit more, you're going to realize why these are probably our most quote unquote traditional pair of jeans as I expose the inside of the leg there. The next pair is going to be this great pair of Momotaro 0605 SILK or silk. This is a silk blend denim. And oh, by the way, I should say the Gustin's American fabric, made in America. The Momotaro's Japanese fabric, made in Japan. Is this pair of Naked and Famous pagodas. And this is Japanese fabric made in Canada. And we're also going to go ahead and roll up this leg a little bit. Now that we've introduced the jeans that we're going to use and refer to today, jeans primarily start with cotton. And you start off with cotton, which of course is a plant which produces fibers. Those fibers are then basically constructed into yarn. And yarn is just a continuous length of fibers. Now, after we get a number of different yarns, or after we get a quantity of yarn, I should say, at that point, this is where we really start making cloth, and that is a process of weaving. And weaving is basically just interlacing threads or yarn that is running in one direction and weaving them through with yarn from a different direction to create that interwoven product that we know of as cloth. And at its base, all cloth is exactly that. It is some sort of fiber, some form of yarn that is interwoven. This is where things get interesting, okay? So one of the first, I would say not as well-known terms is twill, okay? Without twill, we don't have denim. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? Twill is where we take the yarns running in one direction and the yarns running in a different direction, and instead of just overlaying them evenly, okay, what we do is we have threads that run in one direction that overlap sometimes one, two, or not one, but two, three, four, several different of the threads running in the other direction. Now, those threads are referred to in weaving as the warp threads. The warp threads are the vertical threads that are running through the fabric, and the weft threads. The weft threads are those that are running horizontally. So if you're standing at the loom, at the business end of the loom, right, the warp threads are running toward you, the weft threads are coming in from the side. Okay, now, back to twill and back to the fact that twill is uneven. When we talk about twill, we talk about different twill ratios. You might hear 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, and that is always how many warp thread or how many weft threads the warp thread runs over before it runs underneath the next one. In denim, we see primarily 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and 4 to 1. But primarily what we're seeing when we think of as our traditional denim, we're seeing 3-to-1 ratio. That gives us that traditional denim fabric. Now, let's back up for a second. 2-to-1, that produces a really smooth, very breathable fabric. In fact, if you go to Naked and Famous Denim, same folks that made these, I am recording this in May of 2024, they just released their Craftsman Selvedge, which is a 2-to-1 twill denim, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's light, great for the warmer weather, but really still very tough, okay? But again, everything we're seeing here certainly is 3-to-1. Now, I'm going to drop in a picture here that shows the weaving of that twill fabric, and also you'll see where we have the warp threads that are running over the weft threads, and you'll also see that twill gives us a unique sort of diagonal run, okay? And again, I have some pictures. I'll drop those in here where we can see those, but that is really what provides us with what we think of as denim, okay? Primarily a cotton pant that is constructed using an uneven twill that gives us that diagonal character to the fabric. Generally speaking, the twills that we see coming from looms is a right-hand twill. Everything is falling down to the right. I've seen some folks, in fact, I'll mention them again, Naked and Famous, they recently just did a left-hand twill. One of the things that we hear about in denim is this concept of twist of the pants, okay? And because of that diagonality of the fabric, our pants can twist. They can twist around to the left if they're right-hand facing and vice versa. I hope I got that part right. But there's also broken twill. Broken twill is where they, in its loom state or during the weaving, they actually switch that up to where we have a mixture of basically right and left twill. Either way, twill, it's uneven, it's diagonal. Generally 3-to-1 gives us denim. If we have that denim, traditionally again, the warp, those horizontal threads, they're dyed indigo. Indigo, indigo, indigo. And generally speaking, the weft threads are bleached white. And that gives us what we see when we are naturally aging our denim. We see that after a while, some of the white threads tend to poke through. Additionally, because we dye with indigo, and indigo, especially natural indigo or indigo dyed, even if it's artificial indigo or synthetic indigo, the traditional methods of dyeing those yarns means that the indigo doesn't penetrate all the way through. Now, in sort of modern commercial construction, there are ways to have that indigo get all the way into the core, but the more traditional ways of dyeing, it doesn't quite do that. And so that's why you get those aged jeans that have this really beautiful sort of fade, where over time, both you're seeing more of that weft come through, and you're also seeing more of the warp fibers that are primarily what you're seeing when you're looking at blue jeans. Remember, they're usually dyed indigo. That's what makes it blue. You look at them, they're blue, right? As opposed to if we looked at the inside of these Gustons, where we're seeing it's blue, but it's very light blue, and you're seeing a lot more of that white, right? So, having said that, I do want to point out, this is where we're going to use these Naked and Famous, and you'll see these in some of the close-ups, where sometimes manufacturers will actually dye the weft different colors. This one is actually dyed pagoda, using a particular natural dye from Japan called pagoda. I think it actually comes from the pagoda tree, traditionally used to make pagoda temples, right? And what's nice is that different dyeing treatments of weft can give the jeans a unique character. If you look at these jeans, I mean, they just look like a pair of blue jeans, but yet you put these on with a pair of brown shoes, for example, and boom, they really take on a different character, almost something it doesn't smack you in the face, almost something you don't even notice consciously, but it really adds to the overall effect of the clothing. Okay, before we go any further, we talked about cotton, we talked about, warp and weft and the like. I do want to point out that just because, and I've mentioned this a little bit, but let's get into a little bit more, right? Just because they're denim jeans, that doesn't mean that they're always 100% cotton. You may have heard of stretch denim. That's where they take sometimes 1 to I think 3% of the overall fabric in the jean is like spandex or some other stretchy nylon material that gives the jean stretch up to even like 15%. And I own a pair of Koji stretch denim. They're great pants. But anyway, these Momotaros are actually 60% cotton and 40% silk. These are amazing jeans. Spent way too much money for them, but they just have a feel and a look that really kind of rises them to a level of luxury that sometimes we don't think of when we think of denim, which really is a cloth that comes from more humble sort of workaday beginnings. So anyway, that's where we are for now. We have our twill. We know about our ratios. We know that generally cotton made into twill 3-to-1 gives us the denim that we know about. Our warp threads generally are indigo. Our weft threads are generally white, but that can all change. All right, now that we have an idea of what denim is, the next big term that you're probably familiar with is selvage. And what does selvage mean? Well, I'm not going to go into this in great detail because there's a lot of information out there, but let me just give it to you quickly. Modern, but not current loom technology, once we started powering looms essentially, and maybe even before then, we used what were known as shuttle looms. In fact, I'm going to correct myself. I've actually, in Kabul, Afghanistan, I once went to a factory right downtown Kabul, up on the second floor where there were a lot of women that were weaving at looms, and they were weaving for kerchiefs, for scarves, okay? They were using shuttle looms. And what that shuttle loom is that, remember I said that we have the warp threads that come in this way and the weft threads that come in this way. Well, the warp threads can be on a big roll. How do you get those weft threads to go back and forth? Well, the way that you do that prior to current state is a shuttle. And a shuttle is basically some form of holder. Think of like a big bobbin from a sewing machine that holds that thread, and it goes back and forth, interweaving in the ratios we talked about, okay? What this does, because what's in that big bobbin, that shuttle, is one continuous length of yarn, then as it goes back and forth on the edge, it kind of loops, and you get what's known as a sealed edge. That's called, that's transformed itself in modern lexicon into selvage, a self-sealed edge, okay? What this does is it creates, again, a denim, a cloth that comes out of the loom with finished edges. But shuttle looms are not as fast as current technology. We're going to talk about that in a second. And they also are limited traditionally into only making fabric of a certain length. Okay, so selvage, using those shuttle looms, that gives us that sealed edge, they're slower, okay? Modern looms are called projectile looms. They actually use air to blow that weft thread in from the side. They're much faster. They can create much wider bolts of cloth, and therefore they can do the same job, and they can do it essentially cheaper because time is money, right? You can make more cloth from a projectile loom than you can from a shuttle loom. So that brings us to an interesting place. Generally, we denim nuts think that, well, selvage is better, okay? And on that term, selvage is better, let me just say really quickly, hey, if this is at all interesting to you at all, go ahead down below and give me a like and subscribe. It helps me, helps the channel. All right, so back to selvage. If I take the exact same yarns and I put one in, again, all the quality, all the variables are the same, and I put one into a shuttle loom and I get selvage at the end, and I put one into a projectile loom and I get sort of modern state denim in the end, what comes out is going to be very, very similar in terms of quality, in terms of wear. Now, those projectile looms, they're going to have the edges stitched because they're frayed and they can come undone. Some might argue, I am one of them, that the product of a projectile loom, because it is slower, it winds up giving you a little bit better overall drape. But again, these are very, very minor differences that a lot of people that know a lot more about fabric and weaving and production than me would say that the difference is negligible. And I'm not here to argue, I just know what I think. Okay, so don't think that just because something is or isn't selvage means that it is or isn't good. Having said that, we do see, generally speaking, that if people are going to take the extra time and therefore the extra money to make denim on a shuttle loom that gives us selvage denim, they have used overall higher quality in terms of the raw material and in terms of what they're doing with it afterwards. So selvage is generally a mark of better quality denim, but not always. Okay, by the way, selvage is just cooler and better, and there you go. All right, so once we get denim off of the loom, we have our beautiful selvage denim. Maybe we have some really cool selvage denim that has some sort of a cool, I'll show this in some videos, but you get this, or I'll show this in some pictures I drop in. Momotaro, their Selvedge edge, they incorporate some pink threads in there. That's kind of their signature. Samurai jeans, which I don't have a pair of, those incorporate a reflective of a metallic silver thread to be representative of the katana sword of the samurai. And in fact, Benzak, the 10th anniversary jeans, that incorporates a golden thread in their selvage. I really want to try to get a pair of those jeans. So again, like and subscribe, it helps the channel. Maybe someday I'll make a nickel off of YouTube and I can buy a pair of 10th anniversary Benzak. Either way, so we get our denim off of the loom, and then at that point, when it's in loom state, it is traditionally referred to, or is properly referred to, as raw denim, okay? Now, you're going to see, as you go through your shopping, as you're looking online at different retailers, you're going to see a lot of things that are discussed as raw denim. But raw denim, if we really sort of be pedantic and say that raw denim is it comes off the loom and it's raw, actually very rare, okay? Generally speaking, when we think about raw denim, we think about denim that comes off of the loom and then it goes through a minimum amount of post-processing before it gets sewn up into pants, okay? Different folks call different things raw denim. For example, one of the things that you may have heard about is sanforized, and is by denim sanforized versus unsanforized. Well, sanforized is a process that after denim comes off of the loom, it goes through this process of washing and pressing and drying and some chemical baths to get it to a place where it stabilizes that fabric so that you don't have that shrink nonsense when you buy jeans, you wash them for the first time and they come out and they're, 10% smaller sometimes? So instead, sanforization is a way for you and I to buy jeans online, in a store, wherever, knowing that what we try on and what fits, as long as we do our job and not eat too many cakes, that they're going to fit down the road, okay? Sanforized denim is denim that has been stabilized. Therefore, some people say sanforized denim can't be raw denim, and I would say technically that's true, but there are a lot of things out there. Sanforized. I don't buy on sanforized denim. I may at some point, if I do like some sort of shrink to fit experiment, but I want my stuff to fit as it was when I tried it on, or based upon whatever it says on that tag when I'm ordering online, okay? So now what I think we can probably all wrap our heads around is the fact that raw denim is denim that hasn't gone through any of the other nonsense, any of the stone washing or the distressing, or I know of one company that actually shoots birdshot at their denim. You've probably seen videos where they distress these jeans. They take sandpaper to them, or even power tools, right? All that stuff isn't raw denim, right? You know what? Don't buy that stuff. Don't be wrong. I have some jeans that are not raw denim, that are not Selvedge. Some great, great jeans, great names out there. I mean, certainly, of course, Levi's, from sort of what we think of as the traditional, the the base end, Levi's, Lee, Wrangler, all the way up to things like Joe's and Lucky, Citizens of Humanity, and Joe's and Lucky. All three make great jeans, but some of that stuff is distressed. And that distressing, by the way, is really trying to capture one of the things that we know about raw denim, which is that over time, raw denim will take on some of the characteristics of its wearer. And by the way, on purpose, I am wearing not a speck of denim today because I'm going to talk about denim through all this video. So we're not wearing any denim. Okay. As we move, we have different creases that happen in the back of the knees, up here where the legs meet the torso, how we cup our jeans, all these things, what we carry in our pockets, all these things can over time, because of that unique way in which indigo reacts or doesn't react with cotton, and the fact that it doesn't shock all the way to the core using those relatively traditional dyeing methods, that means that indigo can flake off the fabric at the fiber level in different places over time when we get those unique fades. Now, I want to address something. I'm not going to talk about the high contrast fades that are really, really important to a lot of the denim industry and are the subject of a lot of conversation online and in different places. Because again, this is fading glory. This is for denim related fashion for gentlemen of a particular age, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know that I've ever seen a guy over 40 years old who is wearing high contrast faded jeans that isn't kind of a douchebag. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Now, I will also say I've never seen a guy over 40 years old who wasn't wearing high contrast faded jeans that weren't obviously artificially highly contrasted. And so maybe there's something to be learned there. But I think generally speaking, when we think about guys of our age, those high contrast fades don't necessarily go with our look. I think they kind of can scream midlife crisis. Of course, hey, if you're somebody who is kind of our certain age and has some, I guess, genuinely acquired high contrast fades, and you want to blast me down in the comments, go ahead. I'd love to hear from you. I am not always right, but in this particular point, we're not going to spend a lot of time on high contrast fades, except to say it's a whole new world. Maybe I'll do a video of it someday. I'll both bash it and explain it, but that's where we are. Okay, so that brings us up to sanforizing. Okay, and now we're going to talk about a couple of other slightly more esoteric terms as we wrap all this up. Okay, one of the things you might hear in terms of denim is whether or not a particular denim has slub or is slubby. Slub refers to, remember those warp fibers that come in vertically, right? If we make yarns that have differing diameters along that continuous length of the yarn, that gives the denim a unique sort of increased three-dimensionality that some people really like. And that is referred to as slub. That is a slubby yarn that makes a slubby denim, okay? And I don't really have any denim that is really slubby. These Naked and Famous Pagodas, they seem to have a little bit of slub going on. These are great jeans, but I've seen some denims out there. I never bought a pair, or I haven't bought a pair yet, that are really, really slubby and really interesting. I think they're beautiful, okay? But that's what slub is. And slub actually brings us into another concept that is more specifically related to Japanese denim, and it's a Japanese term that's called wabi-sabi. Now, wabi-sabi is a term that I don't know if we can adequately translate it into English in a way that it makes sense to somebody who is a native Japanese speaker. But let's go ahead and give it a try. Wabi-sabi refers to the beauty found in impermanence, the beauty found in flaws, and sort of everything around the fact that everything doesn't have to be perfect in order to be beautiful. In fact, if you've ever seen that Japanese pottery, and I forget the specific name for it, but where they take those cracks and actually repair them with gold. And so now you have something that used to be a pot and then it got broken and now it's put together, but it's put together with gold and it's this beautiful contrast. That's a great example of wabi-sabi, okay? Again, nothing lasts forever. And in fact, flowers are flowers only because they fall. That was actually one of the opening lines of a poem from Shogun, the Hulu series that I just watched. So again, wabi-sabi, impermanence, beauty in flaws, mankind is flawed, etc. Okay, so there we have it, right? We've gone through cotton and yarn and weaving and twill and what twill is and how it's uneven and those warp and weft fibers in different ratios, traditionally 3-to-1, gives us denim. And indigo and white, although we've seen definitely it's not always cotton and it's not always white on the weft, right? In fact, it's not always indigo on the warp, right? We've seen gray jeans, we've seen red jeans, we've seen undyed jeans, right? We talked about selvedge and what that is. We talked about raw denim, sanforizing, and slub and wabi-sabi. And the last couple of things I want to cover are, first of all, when we get down to all of this, also we need to remember that denim didn't originate in Japan. It actually originated in probably Genoa, Italy. Okay, and we also know that. And by the way, jeans, right? Jeans comes from the French pronunciation of Genoa, and it was bleu de jeans, or blue pants from Genoa, traditional workaday fabric, blue jeans. All right. In fact, denim, right? Denim is actually, it comes from the traditional fabric that came out of Nimes, France, right? And so it was Serge de Nimes. So of course we have those different denims coming from different parts of the world. Your European denims, generally speaking, are going to be subjected to a little bit more of that post-processing, a little bit more maybe of they kind of shave it, remove that hairy texture, and you get a much finer, and some would argue a more luxurious finished product, or at least a more finished looking product. In fact, I've referenced it a couple of times, and I do have a separate video about it, but Benzak, who is a European denim manufacturer, they get a lot of their denim from a mill in Italy called Candiani. And generally speaking, as I said, Candiani, European, they give that really sort of finished type of denim. For the 10th anniversary, Benzak wanted to do something different, and they've actually had Candiani create a denim that is a little bit more, has a little bit more character. And so I think it's kind of nice that they sort of broke the mold a little bit with that. So anyway, that's it, right? That's what I have for you today. I think to wrap everything up, as I mentioned, jeans are pants made of denim. And I really hope that this has been helpful for you. And maybe it can take all of your basic questions about denim and answer them in one relatively short video. Hey, this is Fading Glory, and we'll see you next time when we talk about stuff we're going to wear.